Welcome to the Dimensional Shift, where starseeds, quantum spiritualists, and alien enthusiasts gather to shift time, space, and dimensions. I'm Revi, your guide, and this is the universe according to me. Have you ever stopped to wonder how often you're an extra in somebody's photo, wandering around in the background, caught between being in the picture and not actually being in the picture? I love words, especially strange words that most people don't know. And there's a word, sonder, and it's the strange sadness you get when you realize that everyone you pass on the street, everyone you see in the cafe, everyone that you see at the park, wandering around has their own life, and that you're not actually part of it. And it's kind of a strange feeling when you think about it. We have such a self-centric worldview by nature. There's no way for us to not be self-centered because of the way we view reality, but there are so many people wandering around with their own self-centric realities. So today we're going to talk about how those self-centered realities, or relative realities, can cause relationship issues. But first, let's talk about what a relative reality is. A relative reality basically means that the way I view things is different than the way you view things. The experience I'm having is different than the experience you're having. The experience I'm having is based on my history, my perspectives and viewpoints that I currently hold, and yours is based on yours. For example, if I've grown up learning the basic colors of the rainbow, and you ask me what color the sky is, I will probably answer blue. If you've grown up learning the whole art palette, you might be able to look at the sky and say, no, it's cerulean. While both may be correct, there could be a place to argue there. I could say, well, you're being too specific. You're trying to make me look bad. You're trying to make me feel bad. And you could say, you're being very basic. Why aren't you going deeper? Why aren't you looking harder? Why aren't you exploring the colors and the hues of blue? So while this is a very basic example of what we're talking about, it goes to show that realities are different. There's also the type of experience where I could look at the sky and maybe it appears green to me. Maybe my worldview, maybe I grew up learning that the color blue was labeled green. And so my experience would be that the sky is green. And you really can't argue these types of experiences because the experience itself is valid. That would be like going into the spiritual realm and saying, I experienced the Pleiadians this way, and someone else saying, well, I think that they're this way, and arguing about who's right or wrong, because ultimately it's not something that can be proved right or wrong. And even if it could be proved right or wrong, would we want to? Isn't it better to have subjective experiences that allow for a richer, more vibrant interpretation of life? And so when you get into the idea of living in a simulation or living in the matrix, living in a co-created reality, it gets even more complex, because if I can create my reality to be anything I want to be, then maybe I really did create the sky to be green. Do you know that I didn't? Do you know that my sky isn't actually green? There's no way to prove that it's not, and there's no way for me to prove that it is. So sometimes we just have to take each other at face value, and that goes directly into our relationship issues. When we invalidate someone's experience because it doesn't match our own experience, we could be making someone feel bad for something that either doesn't matter or doesn't make sense or literally does not fit into their reality. So my parents are classic examples of this. My dad can say something to my mom and mean one thing, and she will take it to be a completely different thing, and arguments ensue. And at the end of the argument, they're both wrong from my perspective, from what I heard him say and I heard her interpret. And it really doesn't matter who's right or wrong, but because it causes an issue, it is an issue. So stopping and asking yourself, what did this person mean? What perspectives are they bringing to the table? What are they viewing this from? What are their experiences leading up to this? Has this person experienced trauma in this area before? Are they reacting from a place of self-protection and safety and trying to protect the core of their being? Keeping all of that in mind before you react with anger, lashing out, blame, anything like that, can go a long way in preserving and caring for a relationship. And expecting others to do the same is 100% valid. There's no reason you should not ask for the same kind of kindness and consideration that you give out to other people. Finding someone that will honor your worldview, your reality, your perspectives is paramount to your mental health as a starseed, and finding other starseeds who will listen and hold space for you and accept you no matter what kind of shenanigans you may feel like you get yourself into is really important too. Having this flexible mindset is really important when you start to timeline shift and quantum leap, because if you cannot accept the idea that anything is possible, including other people's perspectives being different than yours, experiences being different than yours, and being able to shift the reality into the experience that you want, those leaps and jumps are never going to happen. So the quantum field of possibility is, I don't know if that's a term I coined or if it's just what I call it or if I read it somewhere, I don't know, but the quantum field of possibility is the place where you would want to think of being infinite possibility for anything that you could ever possibly want. I think of them as golden balls, and it's like a sea of golden balls, and each golden ball is a possibility. It's a moment in time. It's a bead on the timeline chain where you string them together and make a timeline. And those possibilities, you have to be able to accept that the possibilities can be anything, including the fact that your experience is different than someone else's experience, and that neither of them are right or wrong, and that right or wrong don't really matter. So once you begin to piece that together, your quantum leaping, all of that will become a lot easier. And you will also find that your relationships become a lot easier too, because you spend less time judging people. You spend less time in fights and arguments and trying to prove yourself and judging yourself too. Once you get all of that shaken out of your system, things become easier. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's easy or that I'm perfect at it, because I'm not. But when you realize that everybody's coming from their own place of wounding and trauma and their own experiences and perspectives and opinions, whatever they've gathered to create the person that they are on this planet right now in this quantum possibility, it doesn't have to mean that the way you experience things is wrong. And when you hold space for both of those being right, then things start to really make more sense and your relationships start to really take off and become meaningful. You'll find too that the more you pour into your relationships in a way that allows the other person to be who they want to be and who they need to be, you are also able to be who you are, who you want to be, who you need to be more too. Your spiritual awakening and ascension will quicken. You'll be able to reach those spiritual highs that sometimes elude us when we are mired in the muck of relationships, arguments, and all of that hold us back. Coming full circle here, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. I hope that you look forward to another Dimensional Shift episode coming soon. If you want to check out more of my stuff, I have a website, dimensionalshifter.com. It has a lot of the transmissions and the universal data that I'm downloading that is really helpful for putting things in this life in perspective. This is Revi signing off.